All right, here we go, everybody. Episode number 4, Sports Cards Live. Happy to have you all here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really happy with the guest that I have tonight. A friend of mine in the hobby, gentleman by the name of Todd Poland, who is a super high-end collector, somebody who's been a big force in driving the values of many high-end cards along the way. But before we bring Todd out, I'm just going to go through a little bit of housekeeping with y'all. So I want to, of course, thank Carvin for joining me the other day. I want to thank Sean Math for joining me the other day as well. I want to let you guys know about a few upcoming episodes coming. So lucky enough today to get confirmation from Dr. Brian Price, owner of President's Choice Trading Cards, hit prior of In the Game. He worked with ProSet, Parkhurst, among others. Tons and tons of experience in the hobby. Dr. Price will be joining me here on May the 23rd. Also want to let you know that we're also having on May 2nd, Chris Carlin from Upper Deck and Steve Menzie, the owner of the Expo, will be joining me. We're going to talk about the state of the hobby with COVID-19 and all of that. So that's pretty exciting. I also need to do the giveaway that Wayne Fraser from Doug Laurie Sports Cards offered, the Leon Draisaitl SP Authentic Limited Autograph. He was generous enough to give that away for us here. So I've got a list of everybody who was eligible to enter, anyone who left a comment on one of the YouTube videos so far. So thanks everyone who did that. I think we've got about 20 entries into that. So I'll do that shortly. And I want to also ask everybody, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also make sure that you go to, if you haven't yet, go to StreamYard.com. Look at the bottom there, StreamYard.com/Facebook, and click the big blue button. That way you can leave comments and we can interact with you tonight and on any show moving forward. So let's go ahead and do the Leon Draisaitl giveaway. So I'm going to try it the first time ever on Sports Cards Live. I'm going to share my screen with you and show you what we're going to quickly do that. And then whoever the winner is, we will be in touch. So I'm going to try this share screen and see how this works quickly. So there we go, share. All right, so those are the people who have entered, and we're going to go to, so everyone there has a number. I've got you all written down there. So whatever row you're in, there are 21 entrants into this right now. So I'm going to go to random.org. We're going to pick a random number out of 21 and going to hit it one time. Winner will be the person whose number shows up there. So let's do that real quick. Generate. Number one. Number one is the winner, and number one is Rod Booth. Rod, congratulations. Thank you for leaving a comment on one of the Facebook videos. Guys, we're going to do more of these as time goes by. So in the meantime, let me unshare screen. And okay, that's out of the way. Thanks again, Wayne and Doug Laurie Sports Cards, for the giveaway. Really appreciate that, guys. I'm going to bring out now a good friend of mine, Todd Poland. Many of you know him, some of you don't, but let's bring him on. And let's do it like this. There we go. All right. So everybody, Todd Poland. Todd, thank you so much for joining me. Usually we're sitting in the room you're in right now in your basement. We're hanging out. We do that quite regularly. It's fun to do this. We haven't seen each other in person since COVID. Welcome to the show, man. Thank you for doing this with me tonight.
I appreciate it, Jeremy. I'm excited to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, man, for sure, for sure. So listen, I mean, you're a guy who collects high-end cards. You've driven the value of cup patches, RPAs for a long time. We were going to get into your head a little bit in that. But I just want to let the audience know, so Todd and I, we met probably in about 2004 at when did we meet? 2000, what year do you think it was?
Probably 2002, I think.
Okay, that far back. So we probably met it was when the cards that were hot were the Upper Deck Premier RPAs, the Spetzas, the Nashes, the Stalls, the Flurries, those guys. And we met at Maple Leaf Sports, one of the shops here in Calgary. I remember we walked in and Darren said to me, "Oh, Jeremy, here's a guy you might like. You guys tend to collect a lot of the same stuff." And so we hit it off. We became buddies. I remember when you had your son, probably, how old's Braden now? He's
10.
10. So I remember when you had your son 10 years ago and I brought a present over to your house. I mean, so we go way back. We're good buddies. And it's just really nice to have you here today. But why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit about yourself, your history in the hobby. And like I said earlier, kind of what are some of the early memories you have of first getting into cards, and what really drew you to them in the first place?
Well, I've collected hockey cards all my life. I played hockey as a kid, and I remember shoveling a lot of walks and mowing a lot of lawns, and going to the corner store, buying packs of o-pee-chee for 50 cents a pack. Those were the good old days. And collecting 500 card sets. And that was the thing. And, the hardest cards to find were usually the no names, and you always had to trade up for those guys. So I've collected hockey cards for my entire life, but I largely got out of it for about a decade. And in about 2002, I was at a local strip mall here in Calgary, and I walked in to go to the Safeway, actually, and they had a card show going on in the middle of the mall. It was Midnapore Mall, actually. And they had a massive show going on, and I thought, this is kind of neat. I'll peruse what they've got, and I looked around, and instantly I was rehooked into the hobby. And that's when they started coming out with cards that were, a lot better than what they were in the 90s. The 90s cards were pretty basic. So I was impressed. There was every card. There was a lot of jerseys, and there were a lot of autographs, and that really got me back in. And so I started collecting mostly low end, and I bought a lot of Black Diamond. It was the first set that I actually got back into, was Black Diamond. And so for the first year I was really into that, but at the end of the year, the Upper Deck people put out Premier for the first time, and I don't even look at calendar years anymore. I always say it's the Rick Nash rookie year, or it was the Jason Spezza rookie year, or the the Tavares rookie year. That's how I remember cards. And it was Rick Nash rookie year, and nobody was hotter at the time, and his cards were on fire. And the Premier Rick Nash auto rookie was, when I first saw this thing, it was like love at first sight. I'd never seen a card like that. It was limited to 99. It was number 1 on the Beckett hot list, and it was it was just amazing. And that turned everything. I knew I had to have that set. It was only like an 8-card set back then. There wasn't many cards, so it was easy to get, but they were all very expensive. And at that point in time, a $500 card was unheard of. So that's you had to really take a leap of faith to buy these things. But that was when I first really got back into the hobby.
Sure. So do you remember when that Rick Nash card was on the cover of Beckett? I don't know. This must have been in 2003, maybe the end of 304. It was on the cover, and the headline said, "First hockey rookie card modern day to be worth more than $1,000." I believe it was the Nash. Do you remember that? Or was it the Spezza? I forget which one it was.
No, you're bang on. It was the Nash.
It was.
And it did reach. It was the first card to reach I still have that Beckett, actually. I was the guy that bought that card to push the auction over $1,000. I think it went for $1,200. I don't know what I was doing, to be honest. That was crazy back in the days.
Well, you just get back in, you see all these cards, they look so cool. That's awesome. So you're a guy who's known by people who collect Cup, and people who bust Cup. They know you, and they know that if you hit the nicest patch possible, you're probably going to sell it to Todd. I want to get into your head a little bit here. What is it that when did you first realize that, number one, I want to have the nicest patch possible, and number two, why is it that the nicest patches are worth more than others?
That's a good question. Originally, when I started buying the patch auto cards, a one color was fine. And I don't think the hobby had really got to the point where the nicer the patch, the more colors, the more intricate, the logo patch versus the jersey patch. The hobby wasn't even there yet. And everybody was comfortable just getting a piece of jersey, whether, one color or not. And so originally that's what everybody collected, but you started to see more 2 and 3 and maybe even a 4-color piece of jersey or a piece of patch. And the hobby started to migrate to the fact that maybe not all cards were equal. And you noticed online and in the market, cards that had, obviously looked a little bit nicer, went for more value. And I think it's obvious why. They've got a lot more aesthetic appeal. And that's essentially what changed it. I originally got into that high end collecting the best patch shortly after Premier came out. I built my Premier set based on 1-color patches originally. And I had to go back and update that later and upgrade it. But it basically changed. It didn't actually become a real thing until the Cup came out in 2005.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember when we first met, and we exchanged numbers, and I remember the first time that we actually got together outside of a card shop. I came over to your house, and I brought over my Premier rookie RPA collection, and you had your Premier RPA, and we put them out there. And I remember we were kind of going, okay, who's got the better Eric Stahl? Who's got the better Patrice Bergeron? Who's got the better Rick Nash? And you were big into upgrading at that point in time. So I even remember, I forget what card it was, but we did a trade where I traded you my inferior copy I traded you my superior copy for your inferior copy, and you gave me some money to top it up. And that was my first real experience with somebody who's big into upgrading cards. And I'll never forget that, because it was my first time realizing that, there is a big value differential between, say, a 3-color and a 4-color, or, even where certain jerseys, and especially in hockey where there's so many colors, like, I think the most number of colors you can get in any hockey card is 7 for the Chicago Blackhawks. So the difference in price between a 6-color and a 7-color can be quite substantial. And I didn't really realize that until that day at your house when you said, you made me an offer. You're like, well, I'll give you my card and $300. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. I'm happy with the inferior copy. And we did the deal. And, and that was just my introduction to that mindset of somebody who really, really strives towards getting the best patch possible. So you realized it in around 02, 03 with the premieres, but then you really became a leader in terms of assembling a full set, especially when the Cup came out in 05, 06. And all of a sudden, instead of there being a handful of RPAs out of 99 or RPAs in the set altogether, now all of a sudden there's 60, 70, 80 RPAs in the whole set. That's a lot of cards to chase. What sort of strategies did you use early on? And even if you can remember the question, how did that kind of evolve as the years went by? What sort of strategies and challenges did you encounter in terms of building your sets along the way?
And just before I mentioned that, I remember that trade that you and I made. And when I first met you, you were the collector I wanted to be. You had the best rookies. And I think you had a couple that I still own to this very day in that Premier set. So, when it became very obvious that the cards weren't all equal, even cards of the same player were not equal, and the market was starting to differentiate patches, and it really became obvious in 2005. I wanted the best patch of every player, and my goal from day one was always to have the very best card for each player. And when the Cup 05 came out, it was the biggest set we'd ever seen at the time, and for patch autos, and it was a little bit daunting. But I was basically going to a lot of local shows, and eBay was new to me at that time, and it wasn't a thing that I was very familiar with. So I did a lot of it locally, and I've got to tell you, I've probably rebuilt that 2005-06 set. I've probably owned 10 to 15 copies of every player. Just constantly upgrading, getting a better patch to finally getting what I thought was the best patch and settling on the set that I have now. But it took a long time. I used to hit a lot of shows, and then eBay became the big thing that it is today, and it made it so much easier. But it was exhausting. In those early days, I was on eBay hours and hours a day, just constantly searching for stuff. Because it was popping up and you had to grab it or it was gone. And I think because of the hobby, it was that sort of patch auto trend was new. There were people that were listing cards that I was willing to pay a lot more for. And they would put them on for, buy it now for $50. And I couldn't understand how the card was listed so low. So back in the early days, there was value and you could find cards. And if you really did your homework, there was, things to be had and things to be found. So it was a lot of local shows in the early days, but it's all online now.
Sure. Yeah. I being someone that I deal with regularly, you speak about upgrading and the fact that you've probably gone through 15 copies of just about every Cup rookie ever to come out. I can attest to this because you've often sold me your under copies, and then I go to the expo because you're not a dealer. So I'll take your cards. I'll take the cards that I've acquired from you. I'll go to expo, put them in my showcase. and they're all like top set patches. And people would kind of look down at my showcase and they'd be like, wow, you have a lot of nice patches. How do you get all these? Do you open all these packs? And I'm like, well, no, I actually don't. I buy collections. I do this and that. And one of the things that has always sort of concerned me a little bit about that is that, and it sucks, but the fact of the matter is that there is a problem in the hobby with memorabilia cards, and that is the fact that people have found ways to take out that little piece of patch that might be 1 or 2 colors and insert back in there a 3-4 color patch and improve the aesthetics of the card and therefore increase the value of the card. Before you address your thoughts on the fake patch, I've called it an epidemic in the past. I don't know how bad it is anymore, but I know that we do have guys that are constantly looking for them, and they'll post them up on message boards, Hobby Insider, Twitter, wherever they post them. And they will do like alerts for people saying, hey, this is fake. Here's a before, here's an after. I have evidence that it's fake. Before you address that, let's just we have a couple people in the room. Our buddy, Mike Davis, we both know, says, hi guys. Mike, thanks for tuning in. Great to see you, buddy. Mike's a local, owns Eastridge Hobbies here in Calgary. So we both definitely know him. We got Josh is here. So fantastic to have some live hobby content. Really enjoying that. Thanks, Josh, for popping in. Reckless, evening, fellas, evening to you as well. Who else is around right now? My buddy Ralphie, thanks again. You're welcome, buddy. Thanks for coming by. Andy's here. Thanks, Andy. We got Scott in the room. So interesting. 10 to 15 cards. Yeah, isn't that crazy? You see a copy you like, you have to replace it if it's better than the one that you already have. Who else is here? There we go. Yeah, Andy hasn't even considered the patch swapping stuff. Well, Todd will get into that in a couple minutes, Andy, and everyone can hear what he has to say. I just want to get through the comments because I really like that everyone gets involved. Jason says he very rarely buys patch cards for that reason. Todd, you may have some thoughts on that. And yes, Todd is a Turgeon collector, Richard. He is probably the biggest Turgeon collector that there is. All right, guys, thanks for the comments. Let's get back to Todd. Todd, fake patches. You are a guy who has obviously, and we've chatted before where you have even said to me, I know I have a fake patch in my collection somewhere. I must have some. They're out there. I'm sure I've got 1 or 2. What have you done to minimize the amount of fake patches in your collection? And what are your thoughts on the whole problem with them, the fact that they exist?
Originally it was something that fake patches were something that were first brought to my attention, not in 2005 or 6. It was actually the next year. It was the Jonathan Toews rookie year. When you started to notice people would actually post things on social media boards where they said, hey, I've seen this card before. It's the exact same serial number, but here's what it looked like, 2 months ago. And it was shocking. It blew my mind that you could actually get that done without damaging the patch window. It was mind blowing. And I think you and I, Jeremy, over the years, we've done a few studies where I remember you coming over. We've taken some of the worst patch auto cards that I had, cards that were maybe $5 cards, and we've tried to take the patch out just to see if it would work. I was never able to do it successfully without damaging the window. But there are people that have got this thing down to a fine science. And over the years, it got worse and worse. One of the things in the early days that was a saving grace, and I would say in the golden years of the hobby, to me, the golden years of the hobby have always been sort of that 2002 right till about 2009, maybe 2010 to the Tavares rookie year. Those were great years. And those were years that there was always Upper Deck used to release a lot of the pack out pictures. And I remember, Jeremy, in 2005 and 6, you started that website to look for fake patches in that 05-06 Cup year set. And that was massive. I mean, that was a game changer because you could quickly go up and look and see what card it was real and what card was not. And that's still up there today. And a couple years later, Upper Deck had you come down and photograph the whole set for their pack out, which was amazing. So you get to see every card, whether it was a 90, out of 99, or if it was some lowly, scrub out of 249. They were all pictured. And so in the golden years, patch faking was an issue, and I've bought so many fake patches over the years. I've tried to weed them out, obviously, and after the fact, you kind of find out. But you felt protected. There was a lot of people that were invested in trying to make sure that wasn't the case. And there was a lot of social media that was on that, and a lot of websites such as yours that I felt protected. But that kind of started to fall out as every year the Cup kept producing another 80 to 100 card set. It got very difficult to maintain. And as you know, people come and go in the hobby. It just sort of has fallen off a little bit. And I will say, before I pass it back to you, I do think patch faking has slowed down. I do know that there's probably one individual, I'm not going to name names. A lot of people know who he is. He lives in Toronto. He's done probably 90% of the fake patches that have been made. The guy's an absolute scientist. He's a crook, but the way he does it, I mean, you can't tell these things are fake. They look absolutely pristine. I don't know if he's still doing it. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of interest in doing that, and maybe the time or the money or whoever, I don't know what it is, but patch faking does seem to have subsided. But it's that's kind of how it has unfolded.
Yeah, so I don't mind saying a name because it's a very well name, and I don't have a last name, but the individual that you're referring to is often known as Kenny. There's this person named Kenny out there. I don't know him. I don't claim to have ever seen him, but everyone always says, oh, it's patch faker Kenny. It must be one of Kenny's creations. And there's probably more than one guy that figured out how to do it cleanly and without leaving any remnants or evidence of tampering on the card. I also want to say that just to go back to when you said that, we've been together and actually tried to do this. We weren't trying, just so everybody understands, we weren't trying to alter a card. We were doing research. We were trying to understand, how do people do this? So I've heard stories where they don't actually, use tweezers and pull the patch out and stuff it back in. I've heard that they heat the thing up and open it right up between the layers of cardboard and then put it back together. I've never done it. I don't know how they do it, but I do recognize it's a problem. And like you said, back in 2005, when the Cup first came out, I built an archive of images, and I did it by just capturing images from the internet, whether it was eBay, Twitter, Hobby Insider, Sports Card Forum, wherever people were posting their pictures of cards back then. I was right-clicking, saving as, and putting them in a folder. And by the end of the third year, so 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, I got a little exhausted by it. It was a lot of work always scouring the internet for these pictures. But what happened, and you alluded to it, was that, it was an issue, and I was really trying to find a way to do something about it. And I actually issued a challenge to Upper Deck. I said, hey, if you guys can't capture the images, I'll come down to your pack out, and I will come on my own time and my own dime, and I will take pictures of all the patch cards. And they said, okay. They welcomed me down, and was really when I really got to know Carvin. I actually went down to South Carolina and went to the pack out, took a picture of everything. And even before I went, I bought a nice camera and I practiced and I made sure, I had it all ready to go. And unfortunately, I did never go back and do it again. But it was an awesome experience, and it gave me a bit of an insight into how the Cup works. And I'll tell you, unrelated to fake patches, but a cool story was at the end of the pack out, when I had finished taking pictures of all the patch cards, and the Upper Deck team was still hand packing the packs. I actually sat down and I started hand packing packs of the Cup. And you were supposed to take one card from each box. So there were 6 boxes, the single row boxes. You take one card from each pack or from each box. And one box was the pack hit. And I remember, because this was the end of the run, so I was actually seeking out the best cards and upgrading and taking 2 from the good pile and putting them in the box. And it was okay. Carvin let it go, but it was kind of the end of the run. So in any event, I also want to talk about your strategy to build the sets. You're somebody that, when I'm at Expo and there's a good patch, you always say to me, what should I look for you at Expo? You say, look for just, what I like, Jerry, what I like. I like the sickest patches. Has that been a strategy that you've used? Have you had people out there kind of looking for cards for you so that you could acquire them? And what value do you see in getting cards really early so that the patch fakers don't have time to acquire them, alter them, and put them on eBay?
You know what? That's an amazing question, because that's, to me, that's the best advice I can give collectors right now, is that if you can get most of the cards you want in the first month after release, you're probably 99% protected, because there's no time for them to turn that around. It's just too quick. Everyone's breaking packs. And I've always, based on just rough math, I believe half the set gets cracked, or half the run, usually the entire print run, half the print run gets cracked in the first 2 months. And you get this huge wave of cards, and then it's sort of, the other third or half or whatever it is, it's not a large amount, usually trickles out over time, the next year or two. But I've always thought that the bulk of the set gets broken the first month or two, and that's when I actually built most of my sets, was right out of the chute. And that helped protect me, because I used to deal with the people that broke the cards. I would go to the hobby shops, and people would break packs right in front of me or in front of the hobby shop owner. And I felt comfortable right then, and I would buy cards. But so that's kind of to answer that question. I thought that was an excellent point. On your question on how I built my sets, I'm a bit of a private, for anyone who knows me, I'm a bit of a private guy. I don't like advertising a lot of my sets or going out there and advertising what I have. And for the most part, in the early years, I used to just try to do it myself. And that's why I'd spend hours on eBay, far too much time. Actually, I probably have a divorce as a reason, because I spent a lot of time on eBay. But anyway, it was all me. In the first year or two, I didn't know a lot of people, and nobody knew me. So I had to do a lot of the homework. But over the years, I've had a ton of help, and it's just, there's far too many social media boards and like Hobby Insider and Sports Card Forum. I was never a member of Sports Card Forum, but a lot of great cards were posted there. So I've had a ton of help, a lot of good buddies. Yourself, probably first and foremost, Tony. I've had a Mike, Max, Blair. I've had a lot of friends that have done a lot of work for me and found great cards that, when they see them get broke, they'll call me right away. They'll take a picture with their phone and say, "Hey, this just came out of a pack. Are you interested?" And that's been, if I didn't have those people, I wouldn't have the sets at the end of the day, because I couldn't keep up.
Sure. Fair enough. All right, cool. I'm going to go to a few more comments. So we'll just take a sip of water if you want to take a break. Barry, I'm back. Thanks for joining us today, Barry. Ralphie, yes, this is the legend. This is the guy that when I have nasty patches at Expo, I have acquired them from Todd. That is 100% correct. Todd, Ralph is a good buddy of mine from Expo and Instagram and stuff like that. Sam, glad to have you. Glad you're loving it. Right on, man. Thanks for coming out again. Someone else didn't click the blue button on StreamYard.com/Facebook. So the person who talked about the hairdryer, please go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, click the big blue button, and then we can get your questions up there. Let's see. Okay. So moving on a little bit. The market has evolved since you've been involved, since we've been involved, like since the beginning of RPAs in hockey. What is your current assessment of the market, values of cards? Where are we at in your mind?
It's interesting. I'll put this out. I'm a little embarrassed to say this. My career has been in investments. I manage money for large public corporations and things like that. So my job has always been investments and sort of knowing the value and trying to find value and not overpaying for things. But when it came to cards, it was totally different. Cards are not an investment for me. And I know they are for some people. People like to buy things when they're low, sell them when they're high. And that's a great thing. And that's probably a lot of people in the hobby. But to me, it was a hobby. And all hobbies have a cost. And I wanted to have the best cards. And there was always a premium to be paid for that. And so I crunched a couple numbers before I came on the show today, Jeremy. I probably, over the last 20 years, since Premier came out in 2002, I probably spent $2.5 million on cards. But my collection's not worth nearly that, because over the years I've constantly upgraded and paid more and more to get these cards. And when you want that best card, you always pay a premium. You always pay top dollar. And so, I've overpaid for all my cards. I know that. I never cared. It never bothered me. And so I remember there were years there where I was moving the market and things were basically being priced off of my stupid purchases. Yeah. Where there would be a no-name player, like a total no-name, a guy who may have played 5 games in the NHL, but I needed that card because it was an amazing patch and I needed it for my set. And I'd pay $600 or $700 for that thing when his regular cards were going for $20. So I've skewed the market a little bit, and I have moved the market, and that was to my own detriment, and it was to my own financial detriment at least. But yeah, and so I still, the hobby's in good shape. I don't think that the money has gone, but the money has moved from nobody does the sets anymore. And when the Cup first came out, people were building the whole set, and you were buying those no-name players. And that continued throughout the golden years for the next 4 or 5 years, until people started to realize that there were a lot of cards in that 80 card checklist that maybe you didn't want to own a couple years later, that were kind of worthless. And so I was the only guy buying a lot of that stuff for a number of years, and people have moved away. And I think a lot of the money now goes to just a few players. And so I think the hobby's in good shape, but I think it's different than what it is. Nobody collects the sets anymore. There are a handful of people that actually collect the sets, and nobody collects those scrub cards anymore. It just seems to be a market that people have moved away from completely, in my eyes.
Sure, I agree with that. Another story that relates to a transaction that I was involved in with you. So this goes back to the 09-10 Cup year, the Tavares year. And speaking about you kind of moving the market, I remember I went to the show and you said to me, if a nice Tavares comes out, I don't remember if Upper Deck actually teased a picture of all 99 of them or not. Yep. They may have. Did they?
Yep.
So you knew which card you were looking for, and you said to me, if you see this card there, you're probably not going to, but if you see it there, I'm going to approve up to, do you remember the amount of money that you approved me to spend on it? I do. I want to know if you remember.
I think my original number was $3,000 or $4,000, but I know I end up spending more than that. But yeah, four was my initial number.
It was four. I remember you said to me, you can spend up to $4,000. Well, lo and behold, a dealer who was set up like right behind me starts busting a case of Cup and pulls the card. And I see it. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what are the chances? But before I knew it, he had agreed on a deal with somebody else in the room, another high-end Cup patch collector, for like $2,000 or $2,200 or something. And I said to him, because I had said to him, talk to me before you move it. And then he goes and basically has a handshake on a deal. I went to him, I said, man, I was approved up to $4,000 for this card. Like, are you sure you want to sell it for that? And, to the detriment of the other guy, we ended up getting the card. And I was like, I felt bad for the other guy, but what are you going to do? I mean, money talks, and it did in that situation, and you wanted the card. And I kind of made sure that you got that card. I think the number was $4,000 if I remember correctly. But I don't exactly what we finished the deal at.
It may have been, but I have a number in mind, and I'll get to it in a sec. But I remember that you called me from the show, and you were so excited. I was at work, and I'm thinking, what the hell is this guy doing calling me now? And you were so excited, and you sent me a picture of the card, and I blew my mind when I saw the card, and I knew that was the card I had to have. So I think because you tried to throw that number out there, and I remember the collector that was going against us. I won't name names. He's a good guy, but he actually met my offer. And I believe you guys had to go back and forth a little bit. I think I paid $6,000 for that card. But I don't remember. It's been a long time, but we did a bit of
10 years ago now.
Yeah. It's been a while. That was a great card. I still have that card.
Yeah, that's a beauty. Okay. So a couple more comments here, just to speaking of the Rich says, UD did a good job of pictures on 15, 16 and 16, 17 Cup out of 99. RPAs made it easy. Yeah, they really did a good job putting that out there. I would like to see them do it for every patch card and every set. Really, I'd like to see them all, so that just some sort of database or archive. I don't know if it's logistically possible, although I do know what it takes to capture images of a whole run of the Cup, and I know that I photographed 28,000 cards over 4 days at the pack out in 2009. So I know it's possible, but I just don't know what else goes into it these days. But how do you feel about when those pictures come out and they show all 99 of some of the players?
I mean, I've got to definitely throw a feather in Upper Deck's cap. They've done a great job of photographing the 99s, and they've always done the really top end cards. Usually we get to see the full pack out. They'll show all 99 of them. Not always, and some years they're better than others. It boggles my mind personally with the technology we have today, and the amount of money that collectors are willing to pay for these things, that they wouldn't take the extra time to just do this. I mean, scanning technology, you can scan dozens of cards at once. They don't have to be one at a time. And it's one of those things where it blows my mind they don't do it for the entire set, which I'll be honest with you, if they did, I think it would draw more people back into the hobby and more money, because patch faking has probably pushed people out of the cup. And so to me, I don't understand it. I scratch my head, but they have done a very good job at taking a picture of all the 99s for the most part. Since, McDavid's rookie year, for example, we got to see all the McDavids and that sort of thing. I've been pretty happy with that, because those were the big cards and the ones where you were spending the most money on.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've done a good job with that. I'd sure like to see it expanded, but it is what it is for now. So that's that. Okay, next comment here. Just got to find my way back. Al says, thankfully, there's a group of people who alert us to new eBay IDs for some of the high-end patch fakers, and that's true. They're Max is a good guy at that. If anyone knows Max, he's on various message boards as, I think, what is he, Gretzky cards or no?
Carrera GT.
Oh, is that what? Max,
you know what? I don't even know anything.
I'm not sure. But he's a guy that is out there really looking for patch fakers. He's getting their eBay IDs. He's sharing them with the people that are potentially going to buy these cards. So that's pretty awesome. I do want to mention one thing also, that I have spoken to Upper Deck about why they don't do it. And one of the reasons I believe that I've been told is that they want to minimize how much they're actually handling the cards. And by doing those scans could add some more handling and could add a bit of damage to the cards. So I think as collectors, we almost need to decide, what do we prefer, an untouched card or an archived card? Anyway, we can leave it at that. I think that's for the higher ups to kind of decide how they want to move forward with that. Patrick has a question here. Why on earth would the card companies not use construction adhesive to secure the patch to the window so it's impossible to remove? I think thought about that before. I think that's a great idea. But you know what? And I'm not in the printing business, but the only reason why would be because something may not be compatible, materials, some sort of corrosives. I have no idea, but there could be something. There could be something to that. Let's see what else we got here. We have lots of comments, guys. I apologize if I'm missing any of your comments. I'm kind of behind in looking at them here, so I'm just going to skip through. Hello to everybody who's here. Thank you so much. Nick, don't worry, Nick. Thank you for this StreamYard approval. It's good to have you in the room. Thanks for showing up, buddy. Anytime I lose out last second, I think yeah, that's this is a funny comment. Anytime I lose out last second in an auction, I think you're talking about when you get sniped. I think I'd pay double to have won that. Like, why don't you speak to that, Todd? Because you're somebody, I'm going to go back to before I knew you. And we were competing for the same cards. I'm talking about 2002, 2003, 2004, up until Cup, and even maybe afterwards. But I remember I would be ready to snipe a card at the last second. I'd put in my bid and I'd get that automatic, you've been outbid. And then I'd see who the winner was. And it was always, can I say your eBay name?
Yeah, sure.
Scandals8HLX. I'm like, who is this Scandals guy that's winning every card on eBay that I want to buy? So why don't you speak to that a bit about, like, winning? What was your bidding strategy to win cards? If you want to share, this might be your intel. So.
No, and I've changed what I've collected a little bit. We can talk about that. I don't do the cup sets anymore. I quit doing that as of 1 year ago. And I can get into that later for reasons why. I still collect, but it's just not something that's up my alley. But when I first started buying the nice patches into 05, 06 and the Jonathan Toews rookie year, I used to get beat for cards all the time. And because I had a price in mind that I was comfortable paying, and the market was still kind of feeling itself out back then. They didn't really know what cards were going for. And sometimes a particular player collector that really wanted that card as well, I used to get beat all the time, and it drove me insane. So I came up with a different strategy. I used to try to snipe with a few seconds left, throw in my best bid, and hope for the best. And most of the time it worked because I was willing to overpay. But I did get beat on a lot of cards. And that changed. I changed my strategy to, if I really, really wanted that card and I knew it was a top patch, I would grossly overpay for it, and I would throw in my bid with 8 hours in advance. And I would put my top bid out there. And I knew that if someone was going to beat me on that bid, they really wanted that card, and I didn't want to pay that much anyway, even though it was a gross overpayment, and I would let it go, and I would have peace of mind with that. So I would put my top bid in right away with hours to go, and I just walk away from it. And eventually, I'd win every auction. And most of that had to do with the fact that my prices came way up, and I would overpay for a lot of things. But it was just I used to get beat all the time, and it drove me nuts. So it's one of those things that I had a new strategy, and I grossly overpaid for a lot of things.
Well, you know what? If you want something and you're willing to pay, all the power to you, right? Anyone has any comments on that thinks that's not reasonable or unfair or what's this guy doing? You know what? We're all entitled to do what we want with our money, and you're a lover of the hobby. You're a certainly passionate collector. I know that firsthand, probably better than anybody else does about you. So I don't see a problem with it at all.
Can I just add to that quickly? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'll go back. Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say on that point, I've never been a hoarder. So if I bought a card and I paid, if it was some no-name cup rookie and I beat someone on it and they were upset, I always let the copy that I currently owned go. So I usually never had doubles of cards. I never had triples. I never had, I didn't hoard cards. I just wanted that top patch. And so I'd always let my other copy go. And so you'd always see if I bought a card within a few weeks, my other copy was online for sale. And so I've never tried to take things away from people or corner a market or hoard the market or be that guy. It's a small hobby. It's a very small hobby. And a lot of people, everybody knows everybody for the most part. And, you can't burn bridges in this hobby because it'll come back on you. And so I've always tried to have fair dealings, and I've never tried to corner the market or anything like that and be that guy. Because there's room for all of us at the end of the day.
No, yeah. I can vouch for you on that. You're a true collector. I've seen your collection many times. You just want your set. You want the nicest set possible, and that makes you happy. Okay, we got a question from our buddy Mike. Other than the cup sets, what is your favorite set that you have built?
Good question. Good to see you there, Mike, by the way. Long time no see. I'll have to come in when COVID's all done. Honestly, my two favorite sets of all time, they're not even, I would like to say 0506. It's very near and dear to my heart. But believe it or not, my favorite card set of all time was 2013-14 National Treasures, Panini National Treasures. And the reason I like it so much is they did a whole set where all of the rookies were out of 99, not just a handful, and then the rest of them were out of 249. The whole set was out of 99. The patch windows were the biggest I've ever seen. The cards were absolutely amazing. They were acetate. They were before that was a common thing. They were some of the first acetate cards that we'd seen. So they just look beautiful. And to me, that's the best set that's ever been made. And you know what? It's a shame they lost their license. We can discuss why, but I know that they kind of watered some of the market down a little bit and collectors moved away. But man, that 13-14 year, which was a big rookie year, Nathan McKinnon, Sean Monahan, like there was probably a dozen, future Hall of Famers from that one year. And it was because it was a double year, wasn't it? Because there was no cup, I don't know if there was a set the year before. There was a lockout, something. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong year. But
the year before was the shortened season set, I believe. But yes. The cup out of 99s were like Sven Berchi and Jaden Schwartz.
Yes.
Much lower caliber year the year before. I actually thought you were going to say a different set. That one took me for a loop. I thought you were going to say the 0001 Pacific Titanium set.
Oh, that's up there as well. And that was the original jersey numbered set. And they really came out with an idea there that no one had ever seen. They numbered all the rookies to the player's jersey number, and you could only build. There was only one possible set to be completed because Ty Conklin was one of one, and that card I didn't get. That is one of my top favorite sets of all time for sure. But I love the patch autos, and Panini National Treasures was just crushing it.
Do you have the Ty Conklin Titanium rookie?
It's a weird story. I don't. I did at the time. I was into building that set, and I actually bid on the card. I remember seeing the auction come up, and I bid on the card. I didn't win it. I bid like $1,200 for the thing, which I thought was going to get it. It ended up going for $2,000. It went to a guy in New York City whose user ID never bought hockey cards before, never bought hockey cards after, and hasn't bought anything on eBay since. Basically a one-off. And we've never seen the card since. And it just boggles my mind.
That is pretty crazy. Who are the best rookies in that set? Is that the Datsuk Kovalchuk year?
It is Datsuk. I've got a few of those. I didn't bring any of those to show, but yeah, Datsuk was out of 13. Kovalchuk was out of 17. Those cards are impossible to find. Like I went through, I actually cracked 20, I would say 20 flats over the last 20 years. And I mean by flat, there's 20 cases to a flat. I've probably cracked 20 flats of Pacific Titanium from that year just to build that set. I went crazy. I would buy up product from Atlanta and Seattle and California and clean out hobby stores for that stuff. I only pulled a handful of those rookies myself in all of that. It was crazy. And I never pulled a Datsuk or a Kovalchuk. I had to buy them in the market. Yeah,
they were tough. Pulling those rookies were tough to find. And lo and behold, that Ty Conklin was sitting on the shelf at Superstar Sports Cards in Winnipeg, Manitoba, when someone pulled it and listed it. And that, I mean, I'm from Winnipeg originally. I wonder how many times when I've gone back home to visit family and I go visit that store, I wonder how many times I saw that box sitting up in the corner and I didn't buy it. All right, I'm going to go through a few more comments here while we gather ourselves. Andy, set collectors are almost extinct. Now it's key rookies. I agree. And you know what? That's been my style for quite some time now as far as like brand sets. I do think something that's taking a hold in the hobby right now are these kind of custom sets really driven by the PSA set registry, where you can collect a set of, say, every Hart Trophy winner, every Rookie of the Year ever, all the Hall of Famers, every Wayne Gretzky base card that's ever come out. There's those kinds of new sets, which are more custom sets that I do think people are doing. Hey, look who's here. Roddy Booth. Welcome to the party, Rod. Sorry you're late. You did win the Draisaitl limited autograph earlier at the beginning of the show. I don't know if you heard, but that card is coming your way from Wayne and Doug Laurie Sports Cards out of Barrie, Ontario. Back to patch faking. Adam Cormier has a question. It's a big one. I'm going to throw it up on the screen. It might cut out our chins, but let's take a look. What about a card technique where they sign the patch, certify it with foil, enhance it, hologram? Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of things that they could do. But you know what? I think there's a lot of things that we as collectors don't really consider. It's just not within our realm of thought that could come into play that make a lot of these things just not really logistically possible. I'm not saying your ideas, Adam, aren't, but I think that there are things that we often say out loud that we'd like to see, but just maybe can't happen. Andy says, I bought card from Scandals, I'm pretty sure. Do you sell from eBay from time to time?
I do, but I'll be honest with you. It's rare when I sell cards. I'm lazy. So usually I will usually go to friends of mine that I know are interested right away, and I'll offer them first. But I selling on eBay is just so arduous, and I just don't have the time. But I absolutely do still sell on eBay. Yeah.
Right on. Here's a question from Jeff. This is a big one. It's cutting off our chins, but that's okay. We'll keep it up for a second. So Jeff's also a super high-end collector. Todd, I don't know if you know Jeff. You would have met him at the Summit.
I think,
show.
We have met him.
He says he saw some of your cards at the Summit. Great stuff. Would like to hear thoughts on jersey numbered SP game used rookie, and if possible, would love to see some of your top set patches. So first of all, I can tell you, Jeff, we are going to do a bit of a show and tell with Todd here towards the end of the discussion. But Todd, why don't you speak to your thoughts on the jersey numbered SP game used rookies?
Well, I think first of all, and good to see you, Rod. Glad to congratulations on the win, by the way. I have moved away from collecting the cup sets. I still buy cup cards, but I only pick the rookies that I'm really comfortable collecting or the guys that I'm really into. I don't build the sets anymore. And the reason I don't build those sets anymore and I have moved away is largely because of there was so much filler. And if there was an 80 card checklist, 20 of those guys were good. 60 you'd never heard of the year after, and some of those guys played one game. So I was paying $500-$600 for those guys for years, and there's just a point in time where insanity comes back to bite you. I just quit doing that. So the reasoning is that I couldn't just do the set and not have the best card. So I don't build those sets anymore. I just picked a handful of the cards that I do like. But to answer that question that was just put up, I love SP Game Used. It is my new. It's one of the 2 sets I collect now. I do Exquisite and I do SP Game Used. And Exquisite obviously is the patch auto. It's jersey numbered, but I love SP Game Used. It's and those jersey number or sorry the jersey numbered copies that are autographed. They're one of one rookies, and to me, those are the best. That's the player's best card. I mean, we can argue this for days, but to me, that's the best. That's the most desirable card. If you're a player collector, you need that card. It's a one of one true rookie, and so I love those cards. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I actually have a couple to show you a little bit later on.
Right on. Very cool. And I agree with you. Those SP Game Used true rookies, especially the one of one jersey numbered one, like the 27 to 27 that's autographed. I do think those are one of ones in my mind. And those are, to me, among the best single cards issued for each player each year. What of the big ones? So the 97 and 97 Connor, the 34 of 34 Austin Matthews, which ones of those? What are the top couple that you have, just to let people know?
You know what? I have most of them. There's another guy. There's a buddy of mine actually in the United States, and him and I have cornered this market. His name's Mike. He's a great guy. We've pretty much, for the last couple of years, and the reason I say we've cornered the market, these have largely flown under the radar. I don't think a lot of people know that these were even put out because they were, they weren't well advertised, in my opinion, and so I didn't know they existed till several years after they had been made. And then when I got onto it, I thought, oh my God, these are amazing. And so I have most of the big players. I don't have the McDavid, and I remember watching it up on eBay years ago. It was listed. The guy wanted $12,000 for it. And for some reason, I was trying to nickel and dime. I don't know what happened there, but somebody bought it. And to this day, it's always bit me because I still want that card. And would I have paid 12 for that? Absolutely.
Yeah. So if it came up today without showing all your cards, would you pay more than 12 for that card today?
Oh yeah, wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
He's the man, right? He's only gotten better.
Yeah. So to get an idea from a guy who, like, you've been saying from the beginning of our discussion tonight, you have happily overpaid for cards over the years because you've wanted them. And I find that interesting in terms of getting into the head of a guy who collects super high-end stuff. What do you think that McDavid 97 and 97 one of one autographed SP Game Used true rookie is worth? And if you're the guy who is going to ultimately determine its worth because you're going to pay so much for it, any idea what that number would be?
And every one of them is different. I would say and this is funny because this is a good question. Lately, we've had some problems with this in this market. People will pull cards on a live break or on a social media forum of some kind, and the peanut gallery will tell him that this card is worth the moon because they've seen my purchases in the past. That drives me nuts. Sometimes these players are absolute no names. So, give or take, I'll tell you, a no name guy that maybe like Dylan DeMello or someone like that, like decent NHLer, but not a guy that you really want to collect. If his one of one SP Game Used autograph card came up, I definitely want it, but I'm only willing to pay a few $100 for that thing, which I still think is a substantial overpayment to any Dylan DeMello cards that are on the market. Yeah. But when it becomes to true, everyone's teach their own, and you're starting to get into the multiple thousands, and I've struggled with that. That's a good question because I don't know. The value, I don't go based on the market. I base my prices on how much I want that card. And It sounds funny, but I know a lot of people watching right now know they feel like me. When you lose that card that you really wanted, you have trouble sleeping at night sometimes. And so I don't have a number, but if you really want the card, the number can be substantial. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, fair enough, man. I mean, there's nothing worse than you wait a week, you have the card on your watch list, you even set a timer on your phone to make sure you don't forget it. And then for some reason your ringer's off and you don't get it. And you look at your phone, you realize you missed it by a couple minutes and you just kick yourself. And my wife knows the look on my face. Now she'll say, you didn't get the card, did you? I'm like, no, I forgot to bid, or damn it, I was distracted, or the phone rang or something like that. So funny how these things work and how we as collectors, these things can affect our moods for the day if we miss a big card.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going back a few minutes here. Sean says, and Sean, thanks again for joining the show a few days ago. It was awesome having you on, brother. Love the show as always. I used to grossly overpay for Gabricks, not so much now. Fair enough. Josh, I overpay for Nathan Horton and Matt Johnson. I can understand a one-time overpaying for Nathan Horton. Matt Johnson, I don't know how much competition you'd have for him, but perhaps there is, and I just don't know about it. Here's a good question. Patrick asked a really cool question, Todd. Have you ever lost out on a card to the actual player themselves, or any stories you might have about dealing with a player themselves or their parent or anything like that?
I've got 3. I've only had that happen 3 times in my entire hobby career. One of them was Joffrey Lupul was the first one that I've ever dealt with. Joffrey Lupul's agent, and I think obviously on Joffrey's instructions, he would tell his agent to buy all his best cards on eBay. And I had a really nice, it was one of the best Joffrey Lupul Upper Deck Premier rookies. And at the time, he was a hot player, a good player with a lot of promise. And so the card was a valuable card. It was a nice card. I listed it up on eBay, and I get a call or an email, asking if they could talk to me because they wanted to come and meet me in person and buy the card. And I thought, okay, well, let's do it that way. And it ended up being his agent. And I met him in a parking lot in Tim Hortons here in Calgary and sold him the card. And he showed up in this fancy car and paid me cash. But that was one time. I sold a card last year to an NHLer who Shane Prince. I believe it was Shane Prince. I may be thinking of the wrong name, but it was a rare card. He used to collect his own stuff, and so he would actually buy his own cards on eBay, and you would ship it to his house, and it was his name and everything. And I heard that he was in the hobby. I heard that before I sold his card actually, and I ended up selling it to him. And then the last time that I had that happen, it again wasn't. I actually lost a big Pierre Turgeon card to Pierre Turgeon's family.
Oh yeah.
And I guess one of his nephews or his brother, I don't know who it was. It's close family, but they collect all of his cards as well as I do. And he won't trade. He doesn't want to trade. He's just strictly a collector. He buys and holds, which I can respect. But I did lose out on a card to a guy that ended up being a relative of Pierre Turgeon. So,
oh, that's pretty cool. All right. Andy gives a hint for people. That's why esnipe.com is handy, Jeremy. So yeah, I think what Andy's referring to are these sniping softwares that will actually allow you to put a bid in, and it will make that bid on your behalf in the last second or two to make sure you don't lose the card. I used to use a sniping service. I forget which one. I haven't used them in years, and I've kind of come to the realization now that, if I miss out on a card, oftentimes that card will appear again down the road. If you're patient and you're pretty persistent watching your eBay searches, you may get another shot at that card. But if anyone else is interested, there's a suggestion for sniping software. All right, I've got through most of the questions here that I've seen. Oh, here's a question. Actually, Sean asked this question. Back to the SP game used 101 autograph rookies, Todd. Does the fact that they're sticker autoed make them less valuable than a hard signed card? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I hate the sticker autos. I completely agree with you, Sean. It drives me nuts. That being said, I don't know if they'd be able to put out some of the products if they had hard signed autos all the time. Now, would I like it more if it was hand signed by the player? I would love that, and I would pay more for that. So yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But the fact that it isn't doesn't take away the value. It's still a 1 of 1. It's still the only copy with an autograph on it. So to me, it still has a lot of value. But you're absolutely right. If it was hand signed, that would be a more valuable card, and I'd be willing to pay even more for it.
Right. Yeah.
I just a comment on your last. I used to use eSnipe myself. I used to use a couple sniping websites. I've been let down a couple times where I've missed cards because the snipe didn't work or something didn't happen. So I went to bidding myself, and I do that to this day. I've missed more cards bidding myself than I ever would have using a snipe service. So it's a good thing to use.
Yeah, for sure. I missed a bunch of comments back, so I'm going to go back about 15 minutes or so already, if I may, guys. Sorry for the little bit of a rewind, but Rod makes a comment. Maybe Ty Conklin bought the 101 that got bought by that one-timer out in New York. Blair mentions that card was pulled in Winnipeg, and I heard the same thing. We know about that. Sam makes the comment: Panini Peerless patches and the Cup Limited logos are like looking at a gorgeous girl, super set. And I agree. It's funny to use the word sexy when we're talking about, I'm used to using that word when I'm talking about girls, or myself for that matter. Just kidding, guys. But when you use the word sexy to talk about cards, I hear it more and more now, and it's weird to say, but we look at these cards and something goes on in our head, something psychological, and we do find them sexy. They're just nice to look at. Yeah. It reminds me of when going back to the beginning of our discussion, I mentioned that first time I came over to your house and we had all of our premier RPAs up and we were comparing whose was better. I remember you said to me, these are my babies. Do you remember that?
I still call them my babies.
These are your, that's what passionate collectors, and I'm not saying yet if you don't do this, you're not a passionate collector, but some real passionate collectors consider these things like babies. Like it's just that's how into this hobby a lot of us are. So it's pretty funny. What does Jason say here? He's got an 0809, the Cup dual scripted swatch out of Gillies. I wouldn't mind taking. Oh, I don't think he has that, Jason. He's a rookie card collector for the most part. Scott has a question. Do you buy much Turgeon stuff on eBay? I sold a bunch of his cards from Artifacts 15-16. Could that have been you, Todd?
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Actually, sorry.
No.
I was going to say regarding the Ty Conklin, it didn't get bought by Ty. Actually, I know who bought it. I don't want to say the name, but it's an Asian collector. Believe it or not, it's not Ty. It was that was his agent, maybe, but it wasn't Ty.
Fair enough. Good, and it's just neat that you know that, right? Reckless says that it always broke his heart that Luongo had a fallout with Upper Deck during the limited logo, so he couldn't sign anymore. Fair enough. This person, AMTMA, says that they got you the 34-34. Do you know who that is?
I do, and thank you very much. I still have that card to this day. I love it. Thank you.
Here's a Rod comment. I got the SP game used 16-17 Sebastian Aho 2020, and it isn't autographed. Is that weird? What do you know anything about that, Todd?
If SP Game Used has a checklist of about 100 cards, I would say only 50 to 60 of those cards that are jersey numbered are autographed. There are a number that aren't. Why they're not, I don't understand, because as we've been pointed out earlier, it's a sticker auto, and I know they have a lot of that stuff floating around, and so why they can't do that. But that's not uncommon, Rod. I've got a number of those, and I have a buddy that collects those as well. They're still cool cards. And that's not uncommon. That actually, it's probably at least a third of the checklist is not signed.
So it seems like when they have the autos, they affix them to the cards and to those 101s or those the 34-34 type of thing. If they don't have it, they just don't put it on. Fair enough. They can't get autographs from everybody all the time, especially during the season. Players are traveling. They don't want to be sitting there signing. So here's a comment, Richard. Back to your Turgeon collection. He says he'd love to see it. I have a feeling you outbid me on all those Turgeon 101 buybacks last year. Richard, I'm going to go ahead and take a venture, a guess that, yes, that's the fact. Todd, care to confirm?
I do buy basically every Turgeon 101, and I usually don't get outbid. I will say last year someone outbid me on a 101, and it was a beautiful card, and I don't know who it was, but I do get outbid every once in a while, but it may have been me, and I apologize, Richard. I don't mean to be that guy. I will be posting my Turgeon collection. Actually, I'm in the process of scanning it, and I'm going to be building a website that will be accessible to anyone, and it'll be up in about a month.
Awesome, Todd. That'll be something that I'm sure a lot of people like to see. Andy's asking a question here, basically saying that, those SP Game Used autograph, and they're not patches, Andy. There's no patches on these, but these SP Game Used autograph cards where the autograph is the jersey number. So yes, Andy, if it's if the 27-27 is autographed, numbers 1 through 26 are not autographed. So I consider the 27-27 to be a one of one for the main reason that it's the only one that's going to be autographed out of that whole run. Some people will really go out on a limb and say they're all 101s because there's only one 26-27. There's only one 25-27. I don't buy into that logic, but I do buy into the logic that if they take the whole run of 27 and make it something different about one of those cards, specifically the 27-27, by adding an autograph, for example, that to me does make that a one of one. Right or wrong, I'm sure everybody watching has a different opinion of that. And hey, that's what keeps the hobby interesting. We don't all approach it the same way. What does Rod say? Yeah, thanks, Rod. Affirming they're not auto patches, just regular jersey. That's right.
Rod, I'm sorry that 2020 Aho isn't autographed. That's a nice card.
Oh yeah, and and hey, Rod, if you want to sell it to Todd, I'm sure you guys can discuss that another time. Okay, I'm out of comments right now. That's pretty good. We've gotten through a lot of the way. Oh, okay. So here's one more. What does Rod say? Let's have a look. I heard the Marner 16/16 was a redemption. That's strange. It wouldn't make all the jersey numbered autographs. Some are redemptions. Very strange why they pick some autograph and some not. Who knows? We could speculate all we want, but
it's not true. I have that card.
Oh, you do. You have the 16/16 autograph. I think, you know what, Rod? You know what happens is that in subsequent years, they do the same thing. And it's just so that the Marner from the following year, his second or third year, they're going to do the same thing. It's just not his rookie year. So in that year, perhaps the 16/16 wasn't autographed, or I'm just saying maybe it wasn't the rookie card you were seeing, but hopefully it wasn't that there were two copies out there. That's for sure. All right, man. Well, listen, why don't you show us some cards?
Okay, I can do that. I wanted to, before I showed a few cards, I had a couple things that I just wanted to, my rules of the road that I wanted to mention to a few collectors, things that I've picked up over the years that I just, history repeats itself, and just like the stock market, people repeat themselves and crowd behavior repeats itself, and it's undeniable. And so a couple of things that I've picked up over the years that I sort of look at when I buy cards now. Number one, there are only four players in the modern era that their cards have gone up after their rookie year. The rookie year, when a card is first released, is when that card is most valuable for 99% of the market. It's just the way it is. Those four players: McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby, Draisaitl. And Draisaitl's only there because nobody thought he was going to be this good. You could also throw Erik Karlsson in the mix because he was drafted late. He wasn't expected to be a really good player. He ended up going up a little bit. He's come down, obviously, in recent years, but there's only four big name players that have really gone up year over year after the rookie release. The other thing I've noticed is that defensemen, no matter how good they are, and there's a lot of really, really great defensemen never go up over time, no matter how good they are. They have to be Hall of Famers. And so you've got to wait 20 years or 25 years for this guy to actually make the Hall of Fame for the card to be legitimate enough. I'll give you a good example. Look at all the Norris Trophy winners. Look at Carlson. Look at Drew Doughty. Look at Victor Hedman. Look at Alex Pietrangelo for St. Louis. You can go on and on and on. The best defensemen in the NHL, their cards go down virtually every year that they play. And it's not that, it's not like they tank, but they don't go up. It's a very consistent thing in the market. And so, those are the two things that I've noticed that, maybe people can save some money if they're collecting or building the sets.
A player that comes to mind for me in that, especially because he played for an original six team and a team with a ton of fans, is Nicklas Lidstrom of the Detroit Red Wings. I mean, how many Norris trophies did he win? I don't know off the top of my head, 4 or 5. How many cups does he have? At least a couple. He was probably the best defenseman of the 90s overall. But then you think about a guy like Bobby Orr, obviously one of the greatest of all time, arguably some people say better than Wayne Gretzky. I never saw him play live, but Raymond Bourque, Paul Coffey, these guys do have value, but like you said, they are Hall of Famers. They've got Stanley Cups or Cup. And it's interesting because you look at a player like the two rookies that stick out to me this past year were Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar in terms of defensemen, rookies, and players that were exciting to the point where Wayne Gretzky said that Quinn Hughes had some of the best hands he's ever seen. I thought, that's going to add value to Quinn Hughes cards because Wayne Gretzky, the greatest of all time, is recognizing that. History has always shown that these defensemen's cards do not go up in value over time. What would it take, in your opinion, for that to change, if anything? What would have to happen for a defenseman's rookie card to have value long-term and to go up over time?
That's a very good question, and I don't know. Maybe Cale Makar is the guy to break the mold, or maybe it is Hughes. But I will say I will make this bet right now, and I hope I'm proven wrong because I've got a number of Cale Makar rookie cards. I bet you he could win a Norris Trophy next year, and his cards aren't worth what they were on release this year. Even though he's proven that he is that guy we all think he is, his cards. And the reason is when you look, the most hype of any player is the potential before they've actually hit the ice, because you've got all this, like, he could be the next Bobby Orr, or he could be the next Nicholas Lidstrom, and so that's priced into his card on release. But when he starts to become that player, that value actually disintegrates and it actually falls. It's very odd. And so I don't know what breaks that mold, to be honest with you, but every year I still buy those guys and I still collect them. And I hope that the mold breaks, and I don't even care, to be honest with you, because that's not what I do. I don't look at making money. I want to collect certain players. So I hope it changes. I've been in this hobby for a long time and it's never changed.
Yeah. I hear you. I think one of the things that could possibly change it would be if that player finished like top 3 or 5 in scoring perennially, like more than one year. Brent Burns had a pretty solid year there a couple years ago, and his cards spiked, and now they've settled back down to where they were. But I think scoring is what drives value for cards more than anything else. Of course, goaltenders have their large niche of collectors, but that's you got the goalies in the back, you got the scoring up front, and then these defensemen kind of caught in limbo in the middle, and not a lot of love, unfortunately. Name asks, are you on Instagram? If so, what's your handle? Name, Todd is not on Instagram as far as his cards go. So I did ask him before the show if he was, and I would have put it up on the board, but Todd's, as he said earlier, besides this interview or this discussion tonight, sort of a private or more private sort of guy, but he is going to be developing a Pierre Turgeon website to showcase his Turgeon collection eventually. Tim mentions, I can't wait to see it. Missing a combo card, I believe out of 10, has out of 3 copy. Very cool. Rod, the Yahoo is available, Todd.
Thanks, Rod.
PL Julian says, do you regret at all overspending for some no-name cup rookies over the years?
Yes and no. That's a question I ask myself all the time. When I look back, as I said at the start of this interview, I probably spent $2.5 million building my collection. Is it worth 2.5? Not even half that. But I've got a good collection. But just the constant upgrading and the constant overpaying just to have that best card. Would I do it again? Maybe, because at the same time, I don't. This isn't about money, or it's not about making money to me. And I know. Every good hobby has a cost. Obviously, mine is a substantial cost, but it made me happy. And it's what I collected. It was my thing. And it was actually, I had a stressful job for 20 years that, working 12, 14-hour days and extremely stressful. That was my escape. And I was willing to pay whatever for it. And if I wanted that card, that was fine. That made me happy. So at the end of the day, I probably wouldn't do anything differently. Have I wasted a ton of money? Yeah.
Well, and you know what? I think people waste money all the time on all sorts of different things. And if this is the one that makes you happy, keeps your sanity, and really helps you with that work-life balance when you are working those 12, 16-hour days, again, all the power to you. You got to do what you got to do to get through everything in life, right? We all have our own vices, if you will. Yeah. Back to cards that have increased since coming out. You mentioned the 4. Your pal AMTMA mentions Pasternak. There's another one that I think you just mentioned. Yeah.
Good call.
What does Richard say? I think Brent Burns too, but peanuts relative to the Crosbys. Yeah. Kucherov, another one that has, I think that I want to say, though, the difference between the Pasternak and the Kucherov, and I might be wrong on this, is that these guys weren't huge prospects before their rookie season.
That's exactly it.
Maybe in their own local markets they were, but I never really heard of Pasternak until he got ice time. Same with Kucherov. So, those guys weren't expected to be major players. They weren't super hyped up, but then they hit the ice and they light it up. And all of a sudden the hype is real. Like there's really substantial foundation for that hype. I'm sure there's a couple more, but
good points. No, those are all correct.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Looking forward toward the future, Todd, what are your upcoming RCs to look out for? Lafreniere, Byfield. Is there anyone on your radar at this time?
I try to collect, this is funny. I may be tipping my hat a little bit too much. I actually, I pay for a subscription online to one of the hockey prospect websites that ranks hockey prospects. And I usually buy the top 50. So yeah, I buy all of those guys.
Yeah. Here's a comment. Peter Chow says, Duncan Keith's Young Gun last cup run was $90, now $15. So back to the defenseman talk and how, we really are a hobby of what have you done for me lately? And, that's a great example, the Duncan Keith. I remember when that card was all the rage after that they won, I think it was back-to-back cups. Yep. And that card was, everybody had to have one. Same with the Brent Burns a few years later. And now it's basically not quite a common, but it's a $15 card. In terms of that card, though, he will be a Hall of Famer, I firmly believe. Yep. And that card could see a resurgence at that time. Any comments on that at all, Todd?
No, I completely agree with what you said. And that is a good point, Peter. Duncan Keith has got at least one Norris. I don't know if he's got two, but he's got a Conn Smythe. He's got 3 or 4 cups. He is a Hall of Famer in my point of view, and he's been amazing for a long time. But it's this hobby. People have to remember it's a fickle hobby, and it's what have you done for me lately? And at the same time, I think there's only so much money that people put into their card budget, and when they want to buy the next shiny new thing, they have to sell the old thing. And what happens when you sell things? It goes down in price. It's just like a stock. If you want to sell something and buy the hot new stock, you're probably going to sell something at a lower value down the road than what you paid for it. If you want to get rid of it, like if you're dumping something, not necessarily dumping it, but you know what I mean. So there is constant pressure on those prices as people sell those cards and buy the new hot ones. It's just the way the hobby is, and so it's unfortunate. That's why if you're a player collector or a set builder, I would wait till year number 2 or year number 3, and I would go back and you can chip away. And if you're patient, you can buy all those cards for a third of the value you would have paid in year 1.
Yeah. Andy's just wants to say, good advice on the defenseman, typically poor investment. So thanks for pointing that out. Josh makes the comment, Lidstrom's RCs were in the overproduction era, though. We can't discount that fact. I mean, Lidstrom, Solani, Forsberg, Hasek, Lindros, Martin Brodeur. We went over this on a prior episode. Yeah, there's so many. Peter Forsberg, Dominic Hasek, so many top-notch Hall of Famers whose rookie cards were mass-produced in those days that there's really no way for them to become a lot more valuable than they are. However, the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie and the Frank Thomas Leaf rookie, those were way overproduced in those years. And now those cards in, PSA 10 slabs have just doubled and tripled in the last few months. So I wonder if there's any chance for hockey to do the same. Do you have those types of cards in your collection, Todd? Those 90s boom era Hall of Fame rookies?
I do, and to me, what differentiates cards nowadays is the print run and the patch. And obviously, if it's sticker or true auto, I think that helps as well. But back in the 90s, when cards were all printed to 1 million, the only thing that differentiates cards back then was the grade. So if you wanted a PSA 10 Lidstrom, those still get decent money. I mean, you're paying $20 or $30, but what's a Lidstrom ungraded? Maybe $1. So
people won't pay the shipping on that stuff.
Yep. Yeah. So I think in the 90s, the only thing that made cards better was the grade.
Yeah, fair. And then Jason mentioned, I think this is back towards what does it take for a defenseman's cards to actually have value long term. I think, he's probably right. Lead the league or be top 3 in scoring. And we haven't seen that since Bobby Orr in the 70s. So, and Andy follows up saying, no, and the mold is, I think you're saying no mold is getting broken, as in it's not going to change. So
I agree.
Time will tell, but you're probably right. Peter mentions the hype is built into the pricing for rookies now. If you aren't a league leader, trophy winner consistently, they are dropping. I think that's been the spirit of what we've been saying.
I agree.
Richard asks if Todd is on Hobby Insider. Yes, you are. Yep. Your username is Scandals.
Scandals HLX, same as my eBay name.
Yeah, not very active, but you do have an account there.
Yep.
Guys, I want to introduce to you Richard Barone. Ask what's up, Jeremy Ritchie, just here, chilling out with Todd, doing live show, Sports Cards Live number 4. Guys, look at the streamer at the bottom of the screen. We also call Rich Barone the Mayor of Canada. We'll get into that. He'll be joining me here on April 29th. So be sure to tune in then. And if you've only heard of the legend of the Mayor of Canada, tune in then to meet him then. He will be joining me. Can't wait for that. Peter also says, I'm an old school set collector, all SB Authentic and Young Guns. When they get hot, I sell them and rebuild a few years later. Todd,
Great idea.
This is a question I wish I thought of myself. Peter, awesome question. Thanks for asking, because Todd and I have discussed this exact issue before. Todd, take it away. What are your thoughts on that? Do you ever plan to do it? Have you done it?
I think it's a great idea, to be honest with you, Peter. I think it's a smart idea financially. I think it's something that hopefully not everybody does, because then the trend won't work. But right now it does work. So I think you are onto something. Jeremy and I have had a discussion over the years of, if you really like the cup sets, why don't you go out and buy one single color? If patches really don't matter, and in the age of fake patches, you can build a cup set, an entire cup set with single color or two color patches, boring stuff. You can do it for pennies on the dollar. Like, you can go into card stores sometimes and they'll have cup rookies that are no names in a shoebox that says $5 for anything. So if you don't care about the patch, and Jeremy and I've talked about this, you can have an entire cup set every year for pennies on the dollar. And I think that's kind of cool.
Right on. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can do that. And another benefit of not caring about the patch or the multicolor patches is that you have a less probability of having fake patches in your sets as well. So you may sleep a little bit better at night if you don't like cards with improved or fake patches. It's interesting, and I've often thought about it. And when you talk about cars and collector vehicles, people will all the time add aftermarket parts to their cars, and they will often increase the value, or they'll switch out the engine, or whatever they do. Those often increase the value of cars. Card collectors, we're much more fickle. We're much more, I think, just traditional. We don't want anything changed on our cars. We want them the way they came out of the pack for the most part. So I've often wondered, like, what's wrong with an improved patch? And I'm not saying I'm advocating it at all, but in just, really philosophically, what's wrong with doing that? And I think the fact is that somebody tried to profit off of you, and really was leaving it one key fact out of the transaction, in that this is not the same card as it was when it came out of the pack. I'm sure there's other reasons I'm not thinking of, but stuff that I have thought about before. Have you ever had similar thoughts like that?
I think you're bang on. It's the disappointment that you basically overpaid for something that wasn't authentic. I'm a bit of a hobby purist. I want that card original, whether it's got 2 or 3 colors on it or 6. I want that card in its original condition, the way it came off the factory line. And that's just how I feel. I know there are collectors that are different, and that's great, because this is a hobby that you can do whatever you want and you collect whatever you want. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just not my thing. And, but yeah, when someone is intentionally doing it to make money off it, I've got a huge problem with that. I will say though, that I think in hockey particularly, we may have a sort of a tendency to become too much of a purist in the hobby. I won't buy Upper Deck cards that they release the next year to fill gaps in the set that they did the year before. So for example, they have these update sets now that they release in packs. They'll put rookies out that they missed or that they couldn't get into the print run the year prior, and they'll actually put the year prior date on the back, even though it was made, the very next year. So I don't like that. That wasn't a card that came off the print run with the rest of them. I don't buy stuff like that. I know the hobby, still out to judge these things. They seem to be popular. Some people don't mind that. It's just my thing. And I think that's probably an issue. And it's particularly a hockey issue. You don't see that in basketball. You don't see it in baseball. They've got a much broader sort of open mind to things. And I think that maybe that's where we should go. But at this point, I'm a bit of a purist, and that's probably a bad thing.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing, because you have your standards, you know what you like, you know what makes sense to you. And I think you got to stick with it, right? You don't want to start changing directions at this point of the game, 25 years into the hobby, and all of a sudden you got to question everything you've done. So I like what you're doing. I like the approach of being the purist from that angle. I think most people do. Your friend AMTMA asked, what is your most favorite card you've recently or last acquired? Anything come to mind?
Well, actually, did you want me to? I've got 12 cards to show you that I call my dirty dozen. Do you want to do that?
Well, let's look at the first one because I think, did you just grab one specifically for that question? If you did, let's see that one, and then we'll come back to them after.
The card that I bought recently, and actually I don't even have it in hand, but I bought the Jack Hughes SP. Or sorry, yeah, the Jack Hughes SP Game Used jersey number 1/1 autograph. I just bought that. And it's come in a few weeks ago. I don't have that in front of me right now, unfortunately. But that's my new favorite card. That was bought within the last few weeks. I also bought an Alex DeBrincat exquisite rookie, a patch auto exquisite rookie, and it's numbered out of, was it 10 or 12? It's very short numbered. I just bought that a few weeks ago as well, and that's another big card I've been looking for years since it was released, actually.
Is it a nice patch? Because that's a Blackhawk card. So is it a multicolor?
It's an okay patch, but it's the only one I've ever seen.
So you got to grab it. Grab it. I want to thank Rod for this comment, guys. So I mentioned a few minutes ago, Rich Barone, the mayor of Canada, will be joining on the 29th. Rich is a no filter kind of guy. He's one of my good friends in the hobby. I've known Rich since 2009. We've been pals. So he'll be joining me. And yes, it may not be for children that night. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Andy, the mayor. Everybody knows about the mayor. All right. Here's Rod speaking about the Eichel card, which I think you were just speaking about in terms of cards that come out in a later year that were not released in the first year for whatever reasons. In this case, Leaf trading cards had the exclusive autograph rights for Jack Eichel. So Upper Deck couldn't do an autographed rookies in the cup or in any set. So what they did is they put out the Jack Eichel rookies. They just were a non-autoed version. Then a couple years later, when that exclusive ran out between Jack Eichel and Leaf, they went back to the drawing board, those original designs, remade those cards, patch autos, added the hard signed autos, and put them in the pack in the 18-19 cup sets and issued them. So those are the ones that you were talking about. And here's another collector, Rod, saying that just does not appeal. Oh, sorry, he's saying
no, he likes it. Yeah,
autographed. I would buy all the autograph versions that came. Oh, he's saying the other way. So he's saying he prefers that card to the non-autoed one that came out. And I've actually personally been on the fence about this exact case. I actually preferred the one that came out with the auto. If I was going to be someone who had the set, I would have taken that and put it in my old set. I actually think that 10, 20 years down the road, people aren't going to remember what product or what year that card came out in. But anyway, we don't need to revisit that so much right now. I know you said, Todd, you want the one that came out during the rookie year. That is the older card, and I certainly see the argument for that. Any follow-up comments, though, before we move along?
Well, I mean, Rod's got a good point. I actually see both sides. If, as a player collector for Turgeon, I would buy those cards. I would buy all of those cards. The first year that didn't have the auto and the follow-up that did have the auto. I'd want both of them. As a set collector, I want the ones that are made that year. And so I only bought the Eichel Cup rookie without the autograph. And when they came out with the autograph, it was a couple years later. That's not a rookie card in my view. And it wasn't part of the original set that was released when everybody else came out off the same production line. So I personally didn't buy that. But if I'm a player collector, I totally see you, Rod, and I would buy those cards.
Right on. Okay, so before we get into looking at some more of your cards for a bit more of a show and tell, I'm just going to remind everybody, sorry if I'm getting a little broken record on this, but a couple of things. Please do subscribe to the Sports Cards Live YouTube channel. I needed to get to 100 subscribers before I could get the dedicated URL. Well, we got there, but now I realize I read more of the information. You got to be a channel of 30 days old at least. So we're not quite 30 days old yet. So keep subscribing. Let's get those numbers up. I'd really appreciate it. Also, it's going on the bottom there, but you guys, on May the 2nd, which is the Saturday of Expo, I have Chris Carlin, who is really the face of Upper Deck.
Wow.
He'll be joining me here, and we're going to have a second guest, Steve Menzie. Steve owns the Expo in Toronto. So he's going to come on, and these guys, we're going to talk about the state of the hobby with COVID. We're going to talk about what their plans are, how they're dealing with their loss of revenue during this challenge, during this crisis. And we'll see what else they have to say, any other potential surprises or anything they may have for us. So make sure you join me here May 2nd. We'll be doing that. That'll be starting 1 hour earlier. We'll be starting at 9 o'clock Eastern for that one. And then we've also got Dr. Brian Price, owner of President's Choice Trading Cards, the prior owner of In the Game Trading Cards. He also he had the first Parkhurst license back in the early 90s. He worked for worked with ProSet. He worked with Pinnacle Brands. The guy has been in the hobby as long as anybody. He's going to join me on here on May the 26th. And that's all I can think of right now. But I do have, guys, I have guests lined up for basically every Wednesday and Saturday right through until May 23rd. So a couple surprise guests, some guys that you're going to really enjoy watching. So make sure you're keeping up with my posts and tune in for all those shows. They should be pretty awesome. Okay, thanks for letting me get that out, everybody. I appreciate that. Rod says, yeah, he agrees with your comment, Todd. You know, if he were a set collector, he'd want the original too. So I think that's a huge difference. Name, who goes by the Instagram handle Indigenous Rookie Cards, a good friend of mine. Name saying, yeah, Chris Carl, yes, Name, we have those guys coming on the show, guys. If you're on Instagram, follow Name Indigenous Rookie Cards on Instagram. I'm sure he'd be very happy to have you following him. And you're more impressed with Todd. Well, thank you, AMTMA, as I'll call you. Okay, through the comments, do you want to show some of your other Dirty Dozen?
Sure. So the first card I have is not, it's a big card to me. And some of these cards aren't big cards, but to me, they are. These are the rarest 12 cards I own. And this first one, actually, I'm going to show because I want to prove a point to a lot of people that are watching, and they may think that some collectors get preferential treatment from Upper Deck. I'll be honest with you, with all the money I've spent in the hobby, I've never got any preferential treatment from Upper Deck. And so all my redemptions, I get a lot of one colors too, guys. I got a ton of stuff that I end up reselling on the market because it's just not for me. But I got one card a couple of years ago that blew my mind. And so I if you remember, John Klingberg had a really good rookie year. He's kind of cooled off a little since then, but good player, good defenseman for the Dallas Stars. His exquisite rookie, because his jersey number is number 3. So his exquisite cards were only numbered they only had 3 copies made. They were redemptions. And I bought one of the 3 redemptions that showed up online, and I paid quite a bit for it. And when I finally got it, it ended up being just an unbelievable sort of patch. I don't know if you can see that, but it's numbered out of 3. It's just an amazing card. It's the center of the Dallas logo. That to me is, you can't get much better than that. And there's only 3 made. So I love that card. And thank you very much, Upper Deck, because that was the best redemption I've ever received. So that's my first one.
Is that the shoulder? Is that the shoulder patch?
It is. Yep.
Yeah, that's a beauty.
So getting to the SP game used, I've got a couple of those to show. This one I bought before it was a big card. Otherwise, I'd be scared to know how much I'd have to pay for it now. It's the Leon Draisaitl rookie, 1/1 jersey. And this card, I don't know if the glare there, but anyway, this card is, sorry, guys.
That's good.
Just an absolute beauty. You can just barely see the autograph there. It's number 29/29. It's his jersey number. It's the only one that's autographed. That is a very rare card. And obviously, I'm a local fan of the Calgary Flames, being a Calgary guy. There's my 19/19 Matthew Tkachuk. To me, that's a monster card. That's a very cool card. And I only have 2 other SP game used to show you, and these go out to the East Coasters, all the Leafs fans. And this one came up earlier. I've got both the Matthews and the Marner. And
so 34/34 and the 16/16 autographed. I consider 1/1 rookie cards, to me, probably the best rookie cards of their whole year.
I would agree, and I know there's no patch on them, and it's a sticker auto, but that is a 1/1 true rookie. It doesn't get much better than that to me. So those are big cards. I paid quite a bit, as one of your guests today knows, because this card was picked up from them. Oh, not that one. Sorry, the Matthews. And thank you again. I couldn't honestly. I build my collection every year mostly through other people and just great collectors that are willing to sell their cards. So thank you very much.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. The next comment I'm going to put up is, we don't have the name, but I think I know who it is. So this, I believe, is my buddy Darcy. He's asking, have you started to get involved with the huge upswing of basketball? Why do you feel there are higher prices on basketball or even baseball? Is that something, Todd, that you can speak to? Do you have you touched the basketball stuff at all?
Yes, I've dabbled a little bit, and only because the prices have gone crazy. Basketball is not. I like basketball. I play basketball. I never have collected basketball cards, and I know very little about the market. In the last, I'd say 6 months, I have dabbled, and I picked up a few cards here and there, hoping that next year they're going to be worth more and I can sell them. They're not cards I'm going to keep. I am dabbling on a strictly investment basis. I will say the market for basketball is just so much bigger, so much bigger. It's like, and I keep coming back to the stock market. People think the stock market is what runs things. It's the bond market, and the bond market dwarfs the stock market by far. There's just so much more money in it. Same thing with basketball. There is just so much more money in it. And I know that there's a lot of people that break basketball in Asia, for example. There's not a lot of big breakers of hockey in Asia. And so there's just money from all over the place. And that's why I think prices have gone crazy. Now, that being said, I'm a little worried. Prices have gone nuts, and that always makes me worried. But yeah, I've dabbled a little bit for sure on a strictly investment basis. And I don't know if I'll lose money on that.
Well, I remember about not quite a year ago, maybe 5-6 months ago, I was over at your place. We were hanging out, and I brought my recent pickups to show you, as I always do, and you show me yours. And I pulled out a basketball card that I brought. I actually brought a shoebox filled. I had a whole bunch of stuff I hadn't shown you yet. And one of the cards I brought you was a basketball card. And you couldn't stop looking at it. You loved the card. Do you remember what that was?
Well, it was either there was a Jordan or a Shaquille O'Neal.
It was the Shaquille O'Neal. It was from a Fleer product. It was the Big Men on Court card. And I don't have it out to show anybody, but it's a beautiful card. And as you know, I've gotten into that basketball stuff. I've collected basketball cards my whole life, but now I'm getting more away from just the Hall of Fame rookies and getting into some of the cool cards from the 90s that are just really awesome to look at. I'm really enjoying that stuff. So let's see what else we have here. So Rod's just making a comment, the SP Game E is one of the best sets out there. He thinks it's undervalued. And I think that goes back to what you were saying, Todd, under the radar as well. Not a lot of people were aware of it.
Right? I agree, Rod.
Yeah. Tim makes the comment. He loves them too. Glad I got one from my PC guy that had one. Yeah. I mean, if you can get them, that's really all you can ask for, right? Okay. Awesome. Any more cards to show, or was that about it?
No, I've got a small handful of more. I'll be quick with them though. These are the two rarest cards I own, and I don't know if people they're not really big cards, to be honest with you. One of them is I'll show this one. It's a Pavel Brendel Upper Deck Young Guns, and it's the Upper Deck Gold Reserve version. But they released this before he was a player, and the NHLPA said no, you can't do that. You have to pull those out of packs. He hasn't played a game yet, so they actually Upper Deck went back to the packs, ripped them all open, pulled out all his rookies, and remade the whole set without him. This made it into circulation, and there was rumor that maybe 5 or less did make it into circulation. And so I know he's not a big player. He was a first overall draft pick. He was a big player back in the day, and this was a big card. And this is one of those cards. I've never seen another copy. This is the only one that I've ever seen exist. To me, that's a monster. It's just so hard to find. And same with this one. It's the Jason Spezza, and it's the same story. It's the young gun that they released before he had a game, and the NHLPA said, no, you've got to pull that out. You can't release rookie cards unless they played a game. So Upper Deck went, ripped up all the boxes and packs, pulled them all out, and redid the set. And a handful made it into production, and there's a few that exist. And if you can find any of these, buy them. They're crazy rare. So those are two that aren't really big cards, but I thought were kind of neat. Let
me just jump in quickly. Yeah. Those are neat. They are neat that they're so rare. And I just want to provide some context, knowing you the way I do. The reason why you even have these cards is because, well, twofold, I believe. One is that your goal was to have every rookie card ever made of any player that's played in the NHL. So, and not just a rookie card, but the best rookie card available for every player. Right. So that's why those cards were so important to you. And is that right? Is that an accurate sort of?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Very 100% correct. I want the best card of every rookie card that's ever been made.
Yeah. Rod goes on to say the Spezza, I did see a few of those over the years. Now, I don't think that takes away from the fact it's rare. I think it actually means that Rod is very active, and I've known Rod for years. He's at the expo. He's a high-end dealer. So he's someone who would, if anyone's going to come across cards like that, it's a guy like Rod, a guy like you, a guy like me who's active at shows all the time. And it's cool you're telling these stories for guys like Josh, who, you just never heard the stories before. So yeah, definitely cool. Richard, so this question should make you kind of smile because someone else knows about this, Todd. Did you have the Stephen Weiss that was also in that set?
I've got all 15. There was 15 cards that were supposed to not be released that made it into packs. I own all of them. I have the Stephen Weiss as well, yeah, or the Weiss, yeah.
Right on. And Chris says that he remembers them as well on the Beckett boards a few years ago. People probably searching for them and trying to find those. So yeah, very cool, man. You're probably not the only person who chases them, and now maybe you'll get a phone call or two from people who are still looking for them. Remains to be seen. Right on. Let's see more cards.
If anyone remembers mid-90s, Black Diamond, when it first came out, was a very cool set. And Joe Thornton, his best rookie is Black Diamond. The condition of the foil on the edging was terrible. And the grading was basically, you'd pull your hair out. You'd never find a 9 or a 9.5, let alone a 10. I own the only one of one Joe Thornton 10. This card was actually featured in Beckett at one point before I bought it. And I bought it from a collector who didn't want to sell it. So I obviously had to pay quite a bit of money for it, but it's a one of one, and that's a guy that I think will end up in the Hall of Fame. So that's kind of a cool card. We started this conversation. You mentioned that Rick Nash first card to break $1,000. This is the card.
Oh, that's from the cover of Beckett. That's the one that was on the cover, isn't it?
Yes.
So that card in 2003, maybe early 04. No, late. That would have been late.
It would have been late. Yeah. Probably 04.
That exact card was on the cover of the Beckett magazine, basically with a headline, the first hockey card to ever sell for over $1,000, or modern hockey card to sell for over $1,000. And just think about that statement, right? Think about that statement now, 17, 18 years later, where even scrub cards can sell for over $1,000 on the regular. So it's really funny how far the hobby has come from that card being the first $1,000 card. I mean, 2 years later, the Sidney Crosby Cup rookie, that broke the $3,000 barrier, and then the $5,000, and now you can't get one for under $20,000. So, yeah. And McDavid's can sell for $50,000. It's truly, really just mind-blowing how far the hobby has come and how much value we attribute to these pieces of cardboard and fabric and ink, and just what a store of value they've become. Pretty awesome. We've had a couple more comments. They're just Rod and Michael. Too long for me to bring on the screen. They will cut our faces off, so I'm not going to bring them on. But if you do want to rewrite them much shorter, we can definitely I'll read Rod's comment here. He says, I have a card never made too. It's my favorite card in my collection. 0405 Legends Classics Triple Auto of Coffee, Bork, and Murphy. I bought it online. It only had Bork and Coffee's auto. Oh, I know this story, Rod. I remember. So the card was released without Larry Murphy's autograph. It only had Paul Coffey and Ray Bork's. And a few years later, when Murphy was at the expo, he got him to sign, and he completed the card that Upper Deck or Panini wasn't able to complete at the time. So that's a pretty cool story, Rod. I do remember that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, man. Listen, I mean, we're going on an hour 45, right around where I thought we'd go. We've covered the topics that I had that we had discussed to talk about today. I can wait for a few more comments to come in. If you're still good for time, I did mention to you before we went live that I was going to open up a pack of hockey cards during the show today. So I'll just tell a quick story, everybody. So before I started doing this live show, and the reason why I'm kind of doing this is I went into one of the vintage card groups on Facebook, and I said to the administrators, hey, can I come in and do a live stream and just show some cards that I want to sell? And they said, yeah, no problem, but you can't show anything that's modern. It's only up to 1989. I said, fine. Well, through that, I was talking to a guy in there, and I made mention that I collect unopened packs of o-pee-chee hockey from 1970 till 1989. And the only one I'm missing is 1989. So he said, hey, this guy who reached out to me, Ken Riddle, he said, I'm going to send you a pack of that so you can get it graded or do whatever you want to do with it, because my collection's all graded. So he sent me 2 packs of 89.90 o-pee-chee. Now, this is not an expensive pack of cards. He sent it to me. It was very nice. I'm glad he did. And I thought, you know what? He sent me two. And this one, I looked at it. This one seems to have a bit of a wrinkle in the wrapper, so I'll keep the other one for my collection. But I'm going to open this. I'm going to eat the gum live on. Let's open up. Maybe we'll get a Joe Sakic or a Theo Fleury or a Gary Roberts rookie card here.
That gum was made for the ages.
There's the wrapper. There's the gum stuck to the card. Okay.
Oh.
I mean, it's got cards stuck to it still. So I'm not going to eat that piece. And that card is, but let's
eat it.
It's still got a bit of chew on it. Actually has a little bit of chew to it still. It's not just crumbling in my mouth. All right, let's see what we got. Adam Oates.
Yeah.
Miko McKella. Andy Brickley. Gary Nyland. Mario Gosselin. Mike Vernon. And a team card, the Canucks. All right. And that gum is now gone from my mouth, swallowed and done. I don't get too sick from that. All right, let's see. A couple more comments come in. Don't eat the gum. Here's a good question for you, Todd. From Scott. What do you think of Ice 99 rookies? How do they rank? How do they rank? And actually, this is a great question, Scott. I wish we thought of this earlier, but I'm glad you came up with it. Rank for us, Todd, the best rookie cards in hockey between the Cup, Ice, Ultimate, SB Game Used. And that's a tougher one because that's a newer thing where they've been doing with the rookies. But going back to let's do 0506.
Okay.
What are your favorites in order?
I do like Ice, and I do have a number of Ice rookies out of 99. I like to get them graded. They typically grade really well. So that's the nice thing about Ice is that they usually come out of the pack in great shape, and you can go and get a 9.5 or a 10. So that I do like Ice. It's not something I've ever made a huge effort to collect the whole set every year. But that being said, I think they do rank in sort of the top rookie cards released every year. And if I were to say going back, it's definitely the Cup. I tend to lean towards the Ultimate rookies out of 99 because they're autographed and they're hand autographed. So the player has held that card at one point, which is very cool. Ice comes a very close third. And so they're great card. And now that being said, Ice has changed over the years. In 0506, the Ovi and Crosby rookie cards that were in Ice were next to impossible to find. I mean, they're literally two of the hardest cards that you can find for those players. And that particular year, the print run compared to how long or how many actual boxes that they released, man, I remember cracking cases of Ice and not getting one of those rookies out of 99. So I like them. I think they're very valuable. I think they're great cards. Nothing wrong with them. I think they're probably a close third. I think the Ultimate rookies, only because they have the hand autograph, rank a little bit ahead.
I agree. I think that the reason why Ice rookies are so valuable is simply there's a lot of equity attached to that brand. Is really the brand equity is huge on that. Whereas with Ultimate, little bit of less brand equity in the collector's mentality. Plus, it kind of just takes a second fiddle to the Cup, whereas Ice is looked at completely separate. And I think that's why you've seen where while you value the Ultimate higher because of the autograph, I think the hobby in general sees the Ice as worth more, and that could change over time. Things do sometimes change over time. That could definitely happen. Let's see what else. This is funny. Sorry, guys. Where did that go? There's lots of comments coming through here. Andy said, "Don't eat the gum." I'm going to, well, too late. Eaten and swallowed. Yeah, Richard seconds it. Thank you so much. Yeah, here's Brian makes the comment, too much filler and Ice. Yeah, that's part of why they're just so hard to find those Ice cards out of 99, right? I mean, back in 05, 06, and I think even to this day, they're really hard to find. Although I think nowadays they make more than 5 or 6 of them out of 99. Do you know about that at all?
Yeah, there's probably a dozen. You're right. The print run of the 99s is greater. And I agree. The hobby does like the ice cards better than the ultimate. So,
Yeah.
and that's always been the case.
Yeah. So Chris's comment here, ultimate feels like a budget cup. So I think that speaks to what I was saying before, maybe why ice is valued.
Good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Roddy, ice out of a 99 were 1 in 10 cases or something crazy like that. And look what he pulled in 0506. He pulled U2's favorite hockey player, Gilbert Brulé.
You know what? That card was hot for a long time. He was supposed to be the next big thing. And that was a big card. That's a nice card. And you know what? That 1 in 10 cases, that's ridiculous.
That's a tough pull. So I don't know if you caught the reference I made. U2's Bono's favorite hockey player, Gilbert Brulé. Did you ever hear that story?
It's a great story. You can tell it if you want.
Yeah. So this goes back a few years ago. Gilbert Brulé was playing for the Edmonton Oilers. And I guess he was driving through Stanley Park. It was in Vancouver, I think it happened. He's driving he's driving through Stanley Park in Vancouver, and he picks up a hitchhiker, and that hitchhiker happened to be Bono from U2, who just happened to be there playing a concert and needed a ride somewhere. So Gilbert Brulé picked him up, and then Bono put it out on his Twitter or something that my favorite player is Gilbert Brulé. That was a pretty funny thing. I don't know if anyone else remembers that, but I sure do.
I think it was on the way to Whistler. His car had broken down.
On the way to Whistler, fair. Yeah. Well, I don't know why Bono has a car that breaks down, but hey, I guess it can happen to even the best of us. Yeah. Brian Palmer, if I survive eating that gum, you're looking forward to the next show. Thanks, Brian. Same here. I hope I'm around for the next show. All right, guys, we are approaching an hour 50 minutes. This has been Todd, man. It's been a really great chat. I mean, we chat regularly anyway. So it's just nice to do it. And, I've often said to you, guys, Todd and I have had conversations over the years, and I've often thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could share what we're saying? Because I thought we had some good insights, and it would have been cool to share them. And now with what's going on in the world today and with the technology, we're able to do that. So I really want to just give you a big thank you for joining me, man. It's been awesome. Guys out there watching, thanks. I can see we've had more viewers on this episode number 4 than any show I've had so far. So thanks a lot. I hope it keeps growing. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram at jaylee_cards. Love to have you do that. I'll follow you back. Anyone has any final comments? I'm not seeing much more new. If I missed any, guys, I really apologize. Sometimes it's hard to see them all, and some I could just miss. It's not that I'm ignoring you or skipping over. I just don't see them. So I do apologize for that. And yeah, guys, we'll be back. I'll be back. So today's Saturday. I'll be back on Wednesday. Again, every Wednesday, every Saturday. I got some really amazing guests lined up. You're going to want to tune in. Some of them are mysteries. Some I'm giving away. I'm telling you who they are up front, but a couple I'm going to wait to announce. And so please come back, and we'll see you all then. Todd, we get to sign off?
Absolutely. Hey, this has been a blast. Thank you very much, Jeremy. And anyone that took the time to actually listen to us, I know that you love this hobby like we do. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, guys. Thanks again, everybody. We will see you again on Wednesday. Have a great night, people.